Did you know that the monster in The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms was brought to life by the same man who made King Kong move? Most people think of dinosaurs in movies and picture giant lizards stomping through cardboard cities. But this film changed everything. It wasn't just another creature feature. It was the first movie to show an ancient beast awakened by atomic testing. And it terrified audiences in a way no one expected. The roar, the destruction, the fear, all of it felt real, because the people making it believed in every frame. They didn't have computers or fancy effects. They had clay, metal wires, talented hands, and endless patience. What you saw on screen took months to create, frame by frame, breath by breath. Let's dive in and discover 20 weird and amazing facts about the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Number 20. The monster was born from a short story. Most people don't know that this entire movie came from a magazine story written by Ray Bradbury. The story was called The Foghorn, and it appeared in the Saturday Evening Post. Bradbury wrote about a lonely dinosaur who heard a lighthouse foghorn and thought it was another creature calling to him. The beast came from the ocean depths, searching for companionship, only to find a machine. It was sad and beautiful. The filmmakers loved the idea so much they bought the rights and turned it into a full movie, but they changed almost everything. The lonely monster became a rampaging terror. The foghorn became a small part of the story. Bradbury wasn't angry, though. He understood that movies needed action and excitement. Still, his original tale had more heart than teeth. The film kept the sadness buried deep beneath the roars and screams. If you look closely, you can still see traces of that loneliness in the creature's eyes. A story meant for quiet reflection became a spectacle of destruction. Number 19. Ray Harryhausen created The Beast alone. Ray Harryhausen was only 33 years old when he made this film, but he was already a master of stop-motion animation. He built the dinosaur model himself in his garage. It stood about 18 inches tall and had a metal skeleton covered in rubber skin. Every scale, every spike, every claw was shaped by his hands. He didn't have a team of artists. He didn't have assistants doing the detail work. It was just him, his tools, and his imagination. Each time the monster moved on screen, Harryhausen had to adjust its position by tiny fractions, snap a photo, then adjust it again. 1 second of film required 24 individual frames. A 10-second scene could take an entire day. A full sequence might take weeks. He worked in silence, alone in a dark room, moving metal bones and rubber flesh bit by bit. His fingers ached. His eyes strained, but he never rushed. He knew that patience created magic. The beast moved like a real animal because Harryhausen studied real animals. He watched lizards, birds, elephants, and imagined how a creature that large would shift its weight. The result was stunning. Audiences believed the dinosaur was alive. Number 18. The film launched the atomic monster craze before The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Most monster movies were about mad scientists or creatures from jungle islands. Atomic energy was new and terrifying, but Hollywood hadn't really used it yet. This movie changed that. It showed a dinosaur frozen in Arctic ice for millions of years, suddenly awakened by a nuclear bomb test. The blast melted the ice and brought the past roaring into the present. Audiences loved it. They were already afraid of atomic power, and now that fear had teeth and claws. After this film became a hit, studios rushed to make their own atomic monster movies. Them with giant ants. Godzilla, the king of all atomic creatures. Tarantula, with spiders the size of buildings. It came from beneath the sea with a radioactive octopus. All of them followed the same idea. Mankind's science awakened something ancient and angry. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms started it all. It turned nuclear fear into box office gold. What seemed like a simple monster movie became a cultural turning point. Hollywood learned that people wanted their nightmares brought to life. Number 17. The dinosaur was called a Rhedosaurus. The filmmakers didn't want to use a real dinosaur name. They wanted something fresh, something audiences had never heard before. So they invented the Rhedosaurus. It looked like a mix between a Tyrannosaurus rex and an Allosaurus with a bit of dragon thrown in. The name sounded scientific enough to be believable, but no paleontologist had ever discovered such a creature. Ray Harryhausen designed it to be both powerful and graceful. The beast had massive jaws filled with sharp teeth, a long tail for balance, and thick legs that could crush cars. But it also moved with surprising elegance. When it walked, you could see muscles shifting beneath the skin. When it turned its head, there was weight and intention. Harryhausen didn't want a clumsy monster. He wanted something that felt real, even if it was entirely made up. The Rhedosaurus became one of the most memorable movie monsters of the 1950s, even though it never existed outside of imagination and rubber. That's the power of good design and better animation. A fake creature felt more alive than many real actors. Number 16. The Arctic opening was filmed in a freezer. The movie opens with scientists working in the frozen Arctic. Snow falls, winds howl, and everything looks bitterly cold. But they didn't fly to the North Pole to shoot those scenes. They filmed them in a giant refrigerated warehouse in Los Angeles. The studio filled the space with fake snow made from gypsum and cornflakes. They brought in wind machines and scattered ice chunks across the floor. The actors wore thick coats and gloves, but underneath they were sweating because the lights needed for filming generated enormous heat. So they looked freezing on camera while actually roasting under the lamps. Between takes, crew members rushed in with fans and ice water. The actors had to pretend their breath was visible in the cold, even though the air was warm. Special effects artists added the breath later using animation. Every detail was faked, but it all looked completely real. The opening scene convinced audiences they were watching explorers in genuine Arctic conditions. The cold was an illusion, but the craftsmanship was real. Movie magic often means suffering for believability. Number 15. The director was afraid of the monster. Yugne Laurie directed The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, but he admitted years later that the dinosaur scared him, not because it was real, but because he knew how much work went into every second of footage. If something went wrong, weeks of animation could be ruined. If the lighting changed, entire sequences had to be reshot. Laurie watched Harryhausen work and felt both awe and terror. He saw the tiny adjustments, the fragile models, the endless patience required. He knew that one mistake, one bump, one shadow in the wrong place could destroy everything. So he treated the animation scenes like sacred rituals. He kept the set quiet. He limited visitors. He made sure nobody touched anything without permission. When he watched the finished monster scenes, he felt relief more than pride. The beast had come to life without disaster. Laurie respected the process so much that he later directed 2 more monster movies, Gorgo and the Giant Behemoth, but he never forgot the fear he felt watching Harryhausen's delicate work. Creating monsters required courage from everyone involved. Number 14. The Coney Island sequence took 3 months. The film's most famous scene shows the Rhedosaurus rampaging through Coney Island, destroying the roller coaster and attacking crowds. That sequence took Ray Harryhausen 3 full months to complete. He built miniature versions of the amusement park rides, tiny buildings, and little cars. He painted backdrops showing the beach and ocean. Then he filmed the live-action footage of actors running and screaming. After that, he animated the dinosaur frame by frame, making sure its movements matched the actors' positions. The hardest part was combining the live footage with the animation. Harryhausen had to project the actor footage onto a screen behind his model dinosaur, then photograph both together. If the alignment was off even slightly, the illusion would break. He spent hours adjusting lights, repositioning the model, checking every angle. When the dinosaur's foot came down near a running actor, it had to look like it really almost crushed them. When its tail swung through the scene, it had to miss people by inches. Every interaction required perfect timing and spatial awareness. 3 months for a few minutes of screen time. Most audiences never realized the effort involved. They just saw a terrifying monster destroying everything in its path. Number 13. The roller coaster crash was real. When the Rhedosaurus destroys the Coney Island roller coaster, some of that destruction was real. The filmmakers built a large-scale model of the famous Cyclone roller coaster and actually broke it apart for the camera. They used cables and pulleys to yank sections of track loose. They set small explosive charges to splinter wooden supports. They dropped pieces into a pool of water to simulate the coaster collapsing into the ocean. The destruction was carefully choreographed but genuinely violent. Wood really splintered. Metal really bent. Water really splashed. Then Harryhausen added the animated dinosaur into the chaos, making it look like the beast caused all the damage. The combination of real destruction and animated creature created something audiences had never seen before. It felt big and dangerous and unstoppable. The roller coaster crash became one of the most memorable moments in 1950s monster cinema. People talked about it for years. They remembered the sound of cracking wood and twisting metal. They remembered feeling like nothing could stop this ancient terror. The The mix of practical effects and animation created something more powerful than either technique alone could achieve. Number 12. The dinosaur blood was radioactive in the film. Scientists discover that the Rhedosaurus carries a deadly prehistoric disease in its blood. Anyone infected dies quickly and horribly. But the disease isn't just ancient, it's also radioactive. The dinosaur absorbed radiation from the atomic blast that freed it, and now its very blood glows with deadly power. This added an extra layer of danger to the story. Even if the military managed to wound the creature, its blood would spread contamination. Shooting it might kill innocent people. The idea was both clever and terrifying. It turned the monster into a walking disaster that couldn't be solved with simple violence. The filmmakers loved this twist because it raised the stakes. The army couldn't just blow up the dinosaur and celebrate. They had to think carefully, plan precisely, or risk making everything worse. The radioactive blood idea also reflected 1950s fears about nuclear contamination. People worried about radiation in the air, in the water, in their food. This movie put that fear into a creature's veins. The beast became a symbol of atomic age anxiety, a walking reminder that some dangers can't be shot or bombed away. Number 11. They used real military equipment. The United States military cooperated with the film production, providing real tanks, jeeps, and soldiers as extras. The Army saw the movie as good publicity. It showed American forces protecting citizens from a terrible threat. So they lent equipment and personnel for several scenes. Real soldiers marched through New York streets. Real tanks rolled into position. Real military radios crackled with commands. The filmmakers loved having authentic equipment because it made everything look more believable. Audiences could tell the difference between real Army vehicles and cheap props. The weight, the movement, the details all felt genuine. In exchange, the military got to look heroic on screen. They were shown as brave, organized, and determined to protect civilians at any cost. It was a fair trade. The film got realism, the Army got respect. But filming with real military equipment came with challenges. The tanks were loud and difficult to maneuver in city streets. Soldiers needed direction like actors, which took extra time. Radios and weapons had to be handled carefully. Everything took longer than expected, but the results were worth it. The military scenes felt powerful and real. Number 10. The foghorn scene stayed from Bradbury's story. Even though the movie changed almost everything from Ray Bradbury's original story, they kept one beautiful scene. Near the beginning of the film, the Rhedosaurus hears a lighthouse foghorn and moves toward it. The beast seems drawn to the sound, almost hypnotized by it. For a moment, the monster isn't just a destroyer, it's a lonely creature responding to something familiar. That scene came directly from Bradbury's The Foghorn story. In the original tale, the dinosaur thought the foghorn was another creature calling to it. The beast came to the lighthouse seeking companionship and found only loneliness and machines. The movie kept that moment of connection between ancient creature and modern sound. It's brief, but it's powerful. The dinosaur pauses, listens, and responds. For just a few seconds, audiences see the beast as more than a monster. They see something lost and alone, searching for something it will never find. Then, the moment passes, and the rampage continues. But that one scene adds depth to the entire film. It reminds viewers that monsters can be tragic as well as terrifying. Bradbury's heart remained in that foghorn moment even after everything else changed. Number 9. The film was made on a tiny budget. The entire movie cost only $200,000 to make. In today's money, that's about $2 million. For a major monster movie with extensive special effects, that's incredibly cheap. Big Hollywood films in 1953 often cost over $1 million. Some cost several million. This film made do with a fraction of that. The producers saved money by shooting quickly, using real locations when possible, and relying on Ray Harryhausen's solo work instead of hiring a large effects team. Harryhausen's stop-motion animation was actually cheaper than building giant mechanical monsters or using expensive optical effects. One man working in a garage cost far less than a warehouse full of technicians. The low budget meant everyone had to be creative. They couldn't afford to waste film, time, or materials. Every shot had to count. Every scene had to be planned carefully. There was no room for expensive mistakes. But the limitations forced innovation. The filmmakers found clever solutions to complex problems. They made a little money look like a lot on screen. The film looked far more expensive than it actually was. When it became a huge hit, Earning over $5 million at the box office, the profit margin was enormous. Smart filmmaking beat big budgets. Number 8. The final battle weapon was genius. The Army tries guns, artillery, and even an experimental bazooka against the Rhedosaurus, but nothing works. Bullets bounce off its thick hide. Explosions only make it angrier. Then a scientist proposes something brilliant, a radioactive isotope shot into the creature's neck wound. The dinosaur is already sick from its own prehistoric disease. The isotope will kill the infection and the beast together. It's a poison specifically designed for this one creature. The military loads the isotope into a specialized rifle and sends their best sharpshooter to the top of a burning roller coaster to take the shot. It's dangerous, dramatic, and scientifically creative. This ending impressed audiences because it showed brains defeating brawn. The monster couldn't be beaten with raw firepower. It required understanding the creature's biology and using science as a weapon. For 1950s audiences, this felt modern and hopeful. Science had created the problem by awakening the dinosaur with atomic testing, but science also solved the problem with clever thinking. The isotope rifle became one of the most memorable movie weapons of the decade. It proved that monster movies could be smart as well as scary. The best solutions often came from thinking differently. Number 7. The Burning Man stunt was incredibly dangerous during the Coney Island rampage. The dinosaur's radioactive breath sets a man on fire. The stunt performer had to be completely engulfed in flames and run screaming through the scene. This was one of the most dangerous stunts in the entire film. The stunt team covered the performer in a special fireproof suit, then layered additional protective gel over his skin. They soaked his outer clothing in flammable liquid and planned every step of the sequence. The performer would be lit on fire, run forward for exactly 5 seconds, then fall into a designated spot where crew members would smother the flames immediately. They practiced the movements dozens of times without fire. They positioned fire extinguishers every few feet. They had medical personnel standing by. When they finally filmed the actual stunt, everyone held their breath. The performer was set ablaze and ran exactly as planned. Flames covered his entire body. He screamed convincingly. He hit his mark perfectly. The crew rushed in with extinguishers and blankets, smothering the fire in seconds. The stuntman was shaken, but unharmed. The footage was terrifying and completely real. No special effects were needed because actual fire consumed a real person for those 5 seconds. It looked horrifying because it was genuinely dangerous. That single shot became one of the film's most shocking moments. Number 6. The movie inspired Godzilla. Japanese producer Tomoyuki Tanaka watched The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms and had a revelation. He realized that monster movies could work as powerful metaphors for nuclear anxiety. Japan had experienced atomic bombs firsthand, and the trauma still haunted the nation. Tanaka decided to make a similar film, but with a creature representing Japan's atomic fears specifically. That film became Godzilla, released in 1954, just 1 year after The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Godzilla borrowed many ideas: an ancient creature awakened by atomic testing, a beast that radiates deadly power, destruction of a major city, and military forces struggling to stop an unstoppable monster. But Godzilla added deeper meaning. The monster became a symbol of nuclear destruction itself, a walking embodiment of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The film was darker, more serious, and profoundly sad. While The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms was an adventure with scares, Godzilla was a tragedy with meaning. Both films succeeded brilliantly, but Godzilla became a cultural icon that spawned dozens of sequels and remakes. Still, none of it would have happened without The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, proving that atomic monster movies could be popular and profitable. One film inspired a legend. Number 5. Ray Harryhausen never got an Oscar. Despite creating some of the most memorable movie creatures in cinema history, Ray Harryhausen never won an Academy Award during his active career. The Oscars didn't have a category for stop-motion animation. Special effects awards usually went to big-budget spectacles with massive crews and expensive equipment. One man working alone in his garage didn't fit the Academy's idea of major achievement. Harryhausen's work was dismissed by some as just monster movies or kids' stuff. They didn't understand the artistry, patience, and skill required. They didn't appreciate that every second of dinosaur movement represented hours of precise work. Harryhausen didn't complain publicly, but friends said he felt the snub. He poured his heart into every creature, every movement, every frame. He created magic that audiences remembered for decades, but the industry didn't honor him while he was actively working. Only in 1992 did the Academy finally give him an honorary Oscar for Lifetime Achievement. By then, he was 72 years old and long retired. The recognition came too late to celebrate his individual films, but it acknowledged his overall contribution to cinema. Harryhausen accepted the award with grace and humility. He had already won something more valuable than Oscar gold, the love of millions of fans who never forgot his monsters. Number 4. The Beast's roar was layered animal sounds. Creating the Rhedosaurus's roar required creativity and experimentation. Sound designer didn't have recordings of real dinosaurs, obviously, so they combined animal sounds to create something unique. They started with a lion's roar for power and aggression. They added an alligator's bellow for a deep, reptilian quality. They mixed in an elephant's trumpet for a high-pitched element. They included a tiger's snarl for menace. Each sound was recorded separately, then layered together using primitive audio equipment. The sound team adjusted pitch, speed, and volume, blending everything into a single, terrifying roar. They tested different combinations until they found something that sounded ancient, powerful, and utterly inhuman. The final roar sent chills through preview audiences. People had never heard anything quite like it. It didn't sound like any single animal. It sounded like something older and stranger. The roar became as iconic as the creature itself. When the Rhedosaurus opened its mouth and screamed, audiences felt genuine fear. Later monster movies copied the technique, layering animal sounds to create unique creature voices. But the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms did it first, and did it brilliantly. The roar proved that sound could be just as important as visuals in creating memorable monsters. Number 3. The film beat bigger movies at the box office. When The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms opened in June of 1953, it competed against much bigger, more expensive films. Major studios had released lavish musicals, epic westerns, and star-studded dramas. Those films had famous actors, huge budgets, and massive marketing campaigns. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms had none of that. It had unknown actors, a tiny budget, and a monster made by one man in his garage, but it crushed the competition. Audiences lined up around city blocks to see the dinosaur. Theaters had to add extra showings. The film played for months in some cities. It earned over $5 million, making it one of the year's biggest hits. Big studios couldn't understand how a cheap monster movie beat their expensive productions. The answer was simple. Audiences wanted to see something they'd never seen before. They wanted thrills, chills, and genuine wonder. They wanted to believe a dinosaur could rampage through modern New York. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms delivered all of that. It proved that imagination and craftsmanship beat money and fame. A good story well told could defeat any competition. Hollywood learned a valuable lesson. Audiences craved originality more than star power. Number 2. Harryhausen's mother helped make the monster. Ray Harryhausen's mother, Martha, helped build the Rhedosaurus model. She wasn't a trained artist or sculptor, but she had patient hands and loved helping her son. Ray designed the creature and built the metal skeleton, but Martha helped apply the rubber skin and paint the fine details. She mixed paints to get the right texture and color. She carefully brushed scales onto the rubber surface. She added shadows and highlights to make the skin look real. Ray taught her what he needed, and she learned quickly. They worked together in their family garage, surrounded by tools, paint, and half-finished monster parts. Martha never took credit publicly. She saw it as simply helping her son achieve his dreams, but Ray always remembered her contributions. Years later, he admitted that his mother's help made the Rhedosaurus look more realistic than he could have achieved alone. She brought a different perspective and a gentle touch to details that mattered. The famous monster that terrified millions was partly created by a mother supporting her son's vision. Family collaboration made movie magic. The Beast carried Martha Harryhausen's fingerprints along with her son's genius. Number 1. The film's success saved Ray Harryhausen's career. Before The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, Ray Harryhausen was struggling. He had worked on Mighty Joe Young in 1949, but that film didn't lead to steady work. Studios didn't understand stop-motion animation or see its potential. Harryhausen spent years looking for projects, pitching ideas, and barely surviving financially. He considered giving up movie work entirely. He thought about finding a regular job, something stable and reliable. His art was expensive, time-consuming, and most producers didn't appreciate it. Then producer Jack Dietz approached him about a dinosaur film based on a Ray Bradbury story. The budget was tiny, but Harryhausen didn't care. He needed the work and believed in the project. He poured everything into creating the Rhedosaurus. When the film became a massive hit, everything changed for Harryhausen. Suddenly, producers wanted his unique talents. Scripts arrived featuring creatures that needed his magic touch. He never struggled for work again. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms launched a career that included Jason and the Argonauts, The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, and Clash of the Titans. Harryhausen became a legend because this one film proved his worth. One dinosaur saved his entire future. Sometimes a single success changes everything. One monster built in a garage became a gateway to immortality. Bonus fact, the lost Arctic creature scene, very few people know that Ray Harryhausen originally animated an entire additional scene that never made it into the final film. Early in the story, Arctic researchers were supposed to discover not just the Rhedosaurus, but evidence of other frozen prehistoric creatures. Harryhausen built and animated a sequence showing the explorers finding a frozen mammoth perfectly preserved in ice. The mammoth wasn't alive, but its discovery was meant to hint at the possibilities hidden in the frozen north. If one dinosaur survived frozen for millions of years, what else might be sleeping beneath the ice? Harryhausen spent 2 weeks animating the mammoth sequence. He built a detailed model covered in realistic fur. He positioned it behind layers of clear resin meant to look like ice. He animated scientists carefully examining it with wonder and fear. The scene was beautiful and haunting. But when the film was edited, the director decided it slowed down the story. The mammoth didn't contribute to the main plot about the Rhedosaurus. It was interesting, but not essential. So the entire sequence was cut. Those 2 weeks of work vanished from the film. The mammoth footage was stored in a vault and eventually lost or destroyed. No copies survived. Harryhausen mentioned it only once in an interview years later. He wasn't bitter about the cut. He understood that movies require tough choices, but he always wondered what audiences would have thought of that frozen giant staring out through ancient ice. Sometimes the best work remains hidden. Lost scenes become ghosts haunting film history. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms reminds us that great art often comes from small beginnings. One man with clay and wire created something that influenced movies for generations. The film showed that imagination beats budgets, that patience creates magic, and that fear can be beautiful when crafted with care. It proved that monster movies could be smart, thrilling, and meaningful. It gave birth to an entire genre of atomic-age creature features. It launched careers, inspired legends, and terrified millions. But more than anything, it demonstrated the power of believing in your vision even when nobody else does. Ray Harryhausen could have given up when studios rejected his ideas. Instead, he kept working, kept creating, kept believing that stop-motion animation mattered. This film proved him right. Every frame of the Rhedosaurus shows dedication, skill, and love for the craft. The Beast lives forever because someone cared enough to bring it to life, one patient adjustment at a time. If you enjoyed these stories, subscribe for more. Every movie hides a truth, and we'll keep uncovering them, one story at a time.